It's day 300. It's 4:30 in the morning. It's raining, and for some reason there's something gone wrong with the boiler or the electrics. We don't seem to have electrics in certain parts of it. So I'm just walking around now. I'm going to try and check the incoming fuses and phases. Nice start to be woken up by texting me, and then can't even work out why it's gone wrong. Yeah, we've got all the inverters off here as well. The solar panels. Strange. Yeah, so I've run the electric board because I've checked all our stuff on the yard. I've checked the incomer, and actually our meter is even flashing up saying there's a phase fault, and that's the first thing that comes into our property. So I've rung Scottish Power. You tell them, you speak to a computer. The computer's told me that there's a fault, and apparently they're going to have it fixed in 2 hours according to the answer phone message or the computer message. So we'll see what happens and see if we can get everything back running again. Electric's back on now. There's a fault on one of the phases, so it meant that it wasn't giving full power, so it caused all sorts of trouble with all the three-phase motors on the whole boiler and everything else around the yard, including all the roller shutter doors. So the neighbour up the road couldn't get the car out of the garage and everything. The compressor threw a fit on here even after it come back on because it got confused or whatever. But everything's working and it's shut now. Boiler temperature dropped right down. See that red line? Go back. There's where the boiler was running fine, and the electric went on, and it cooled down, and it's slowly starting to rise because the water wasn't getting pumped round, but it's just rising to the temperature. And then now everything went back to normal. Electric back on, and off we go, and it's rising back up again now on there. So you can see on the graph properly. So, all good now. Nothing seems to be broken either. Just in the grain shed now. BBC Breakfast want to talk to me tomorrow about footpaths. I'm not just sure what time it's going to be on. They did say around 8 o'clock, but that might change later on in the day. So they wanted me to do a test on. They can't use FaceTime anymore because they want to give out someone's phone number by mistake, so or email address. So they're going to use Zoom. So I've had to download Zoom, but to get the video quality right, I've got my old phone set up there to stream the video to this phone I'm recording on now over Wi-Fi. That tricks the phone then into thinking that it's connected to Wi-Fi, and it sends it through at a really high frame rate and really good quality video, so it should look like they're actually stood here. So they've asked me will I get a tripod or set my phone up on something, so got a ladder, set that up on there, and we were going to do it outside, but it's likely to be really windy tomorrow again, so they don't want to just hear from the noise, so that's why we're in the shed. But it's more interesting talking to someone in a shed so that they know that they're on a farm rather than someone sat at a desk in the spare box room, which is what the whole of every single interview for the last sort of 9 months, the last 300 days actually seems to have been. So I might move the tractors around the shed to look a bit tidy because they're a bit kind of scattered. It was a bit dark last night, but this is the condition the spreader's in now. It's nowhere near looking new anymore, and the back looks worse. Yeah. I mean, if you imagine we painted that thing yellow on the back, it's hard to tell. It's just caked with muck, and you can see where the string's been wrapped around it, and that's been like lapping. So it's like worn the paint off here, but at least it's not worn the paint off the actual original spreader, which is good. The paint's come off there where they spin round, and like I say, the Therabide looks fine at the moment. Anyway, it shouldn't really be in here because we backed it in last night. Should be in the other shed or outside, so I'm going to take it outside, move stuff around a bit, make a bit of space in the shed. Just at the beach. I'm not really. I'm still in the field. It's a wheat stubble. Higher up the hill. I'm not going to say it's dry, but it's not flooded. The bottom here though is flooded, so we've got a sort of a river there, and that greener grass. You see. It's tidal. We've had a lot of rain, another 9 mil last night. We've now had more rain this January than last January. Well, a third more rain this January than last January already, and what will be on the 15th or something. So, over the last few days, the river's been rising up, coming over the banking. The rain's been coming down. The drains can't get away. So we've got, I don't know, maybe 10 acres underwater here. It's a bit hard to see because you can see it's like a straight line there where it sort of stops. That's where it turns from wheat stubble to grass. So when you walk in here, it probably gets, I don't know, 2 or 3 foot deep. bigger flooding at the other farm when they had the ice on. That's about 2 or 3 acres. This is about, I don't know, 10 or 12, because it kind of goes right that way as well, and then across into the other field. Bit of a shame really. What it really needs is the land raising up a little bit, because it's basically lower lying than the natural kind of riverbank. I suppose you'd call it a floodplain, but there's not anything really else that way. It's kind of straight out to sea. It's just held up. It's not a benefit to anyone, this land flooding, because it had been gone anyway. So it's just a bit annoying really. It's just land that we can't really use. When we first took this field on, we only used to crop it. So the guy that had it before us only used to crop it about it because it did used to flood. We've kind of pushed it back, because if you've got a spring crop on it, there's a good chance that every few years it doesn't flood enough and you can harvest the crop off it. We've now put it back down to grass, because if it's in the summer it can be used for grazing horses or making hay, but in the winter obviously you've got this every sort of few weeks in every extreme rain event. This stubble now further up the hill, we're getting a bit drier. This will be beans, so it's we'd normally like to put a cover crop on it. It was so wet at harvest when we harvested it. We couldn't even do that, because obviously it started raining in July and didn't stop. But we'll get on it. It's fairly clean. A little bit of volunteer grass weeds, nothing major though. And we might put a bit of muck on it as well. If we get a chance, we'll cart some up here, spread some on if we get some more dry weather or frosted weather. And then this will, like I say, will be beans. Now, I'm not sure if anyone remembers us putting the drains underneath the sand paddock. So it's the old yard. We ripped the yard up and we put some drains underneath it. And then we ran them underneath here. And they go to that manhole there. So I'm going to lift the lid and I'll show you how it's working. If we take the lid up, you can see the water comes in down there, in this corner. There we go. Gets focused and then it goes out that way. So that's nice and empty, which is good. So that means that the drains are working that we put in underneath the menage, because the menage isn't flooded and the drains aren't too high. Goes off over in that direction and empties out in the pond. The outlet is high in the pond, but it must be lower than this manhole. So though the pond levels up, the water still manages to get away, which is good. Just come to film something for the BBC on this footpath, so I'll put that on now and then it saves me doing footage. I'm just stood in a field here. We've got a footpath straight down the middle. It's obviously got a bit wet, you can see behind me, but there's some people now just walking on the field. The field this side is sown with oilseed rape, so that's getting squashed and damaged. The field that side is going to be spring barley, which will be used to make gin. Now, luckily it's not sown at the moment, but if people carry on sort of straying off the path, it'll make it impossible to grow a crop in it, certainly along here. Also as well, we often sow down the sides of these footpaths wildflowers, increases pollinators on the farm, and it's nice for people to look at. But if people don't keep to the paths, we can't do that. It's not difficult. I mean, obviously we've got some puddles here, but with the right footwear, pair of wellies, pair of boots, just walk through the puddles. The other thing as well is we often don't go on fields ourselves if it's too wet, with tractors or even on foot ourselves. So there is times when obviously the footpaths won't be suitable. That's something that BBC are going to use, I think, tomorrow morning. I don't know whether they're going to put it on the internet first to say what they're talking about, but tomorrow morning, I think it's about 8:30, 8:45. We're going to be talking about people using the right footwear and sticking to the paths. This is yesterday's quiz question. It's a bearing puller. So you got a bearing on a shaft, the little claws will hook round it. It's hard to do this with one hand. Hook round it, and then there's a thing that goes in the top there, winds in, and it pushes a little piston out here. So if you put like only a hand winding in the top, it gives 12 ton of force out of this, because this actual middle bit here is a hydraulic ram. So it squeezes out this piston, focuses here, squeezes out that piston with 12 tons of force, and will push on the shaft, and then the claws pull on the bearing like that, and it pulls bearings off shafts. Handy bit of kit. We have a few of them because we do have a habit of breaking them, especially when you're heating the bearing up when it's really jammed, melts the seals in them. Everyone enjoyed the other day's question that contained a spring. So does anyone know what this one is? It's quite big, sort of knee high, waist high. Zoom out. I'll do a still of it so you can see better on the floor. So if you know what it is, click like. If you don't want, if you're guessing what it is, leave a comment. and then I'll let you know tomorrow what it is, and I'll show you how it works. I've tidied the shed a bit, put the Merlot in, put the potato plate on the Merlot just to wind people up, because if tomorrow it's on BBC Breakfast, everyone will be like, have they put a private reg on a tractor? So I just think it's quite funny to do. So that's about it for today. I'm going to go in and get warm and edit the video and get some sleep, because I didn't get any last night because the electric was off. So I'll see you all tomorrow bright and early. And that was day 300, can you believe it?